Okay, so we should start. Uh, so we were discussing on different types of scheduling, and also we started with how the intertask communication can takes place
Excuse me,
using.
ma'am.
Yeah,
Can you please start the recording?
one second. Okay, so we've seen preemptive scheduling. So in which the the switching between the different tasks takes place due to the priority. So, and there are different options through kernel objects. I mean, it is waiting for either the semaphore, mutex, or any message through which you can have the switching from one task to another task. So that is in the preemptive scheduling. And in round robin, normally we assume that there is a fixed duration of time is allotted for each task. So as per the timer tick, as soon as the timer completes, I mean the duration whatever is assigned for, it switches to the next task. So we've seen the round robin scheduling. So in RTX, so we have round robin with the preemptive based scheduling. So maybe the example which I have shown, it is an example of round robin with the preemptive. So the reason is, so if you look at the pseudocode which I have given, here you have say two tasks. So you enable the round robin and just without looking at anything, you can make out that, okay, it's as soon as the duration is given for the specific task, and it finishes, it switches to the next task. Okay, this is simple round robin scheduling. But the example which I have shown, wherein we have used some sort of a delay function in between. Okay, so which makes you interrupt, you force it to go to the block state, so that, I mean, you can make use of different the kernel objects in between, so that it is preempted or it is waiting for something. Okay, so you can add those functions in between, so that the particular task can switch to the next task which is there in the ready list. Okay, so that is your round robin with the preemptive scheduling. In the example, I have given some sort of a delay function in between, so that the task can switch to the next in the ready list. Okay, so coming to the next type of scheduling, which is cooperative multitasking. Okay, so in cooperative multitasking, so you disable the round robin option which you have it, okay, in your configuration file. So the round robin will be disabled, and moreover, you set all the tasks with the same priority. This is very important. So all the tasks will be given with the same priority. So which means a particular task which started in the beginning will continue as long as it gets blocked. Okay, as long as it is blocked, it continues. That means till it finishes. That is a cooperative scheduling. Then it goes to the second task. Likewise, it goes on. Okay, supposing this is blocked, then maybe after the rest all the task finishes, it goes to the next. Here the blocking call, otherwise it may not get a chance for the next task in the ready list. So we'll be using a function in the cooperative scheduling, which is os underscore task underscore pass. So this is a function which we use in the cooperative scheduling. So which means each task run until a blocking call is used. This is our blocking call. Okay, so task can block on any of the your standard OS objects. Okay, so this is the mainly function which we use that schedules a task to the ready state. Okay, it pushes to the ready state. So that is you call it as a cooperative in the sense other tasks need to be cooperative with the task which is running. Okay, so you will be waiting in a loop in a ready list till I get my chance. But here, while writing the RTX code, we'll be using this function so that it forcibly blocked and the next task will get a chance for the execution. Okay. So this is your cooperative multitasking, and so example of cooperative multitasking, that is, so RTX kernel starts executing task 1 and which creates task 2. Maybe there are different ways of writing the code. So let me go to the code itself. So which is be, yeah. So we have given the declarations. There are two counters. A simple code is given just to understand. And this is your the kernel, the task declarations through underscore task. So it is mandatory to use. Then I have a task 1. In the task 1, I am creating the task 2. Okay. Maybe I have given us no priority. And here it's a continuous loop. I'm incrementing the counter, but look at this. I have used OS underscore task pass. So in sense, the task 1 is forced to go to blocked, and since task 2 I already created it, start executing. Here again it will increment the counter, then I make a pass so that this is forced to go to blocked, and switching between the task 1 and task 2 can takes place. Okay, so this is your main function wherein you've initialized with the task 1, and it will be stay in a loop and nothing. I mean, you can have some certain declarations or any other standard functions necessary. So, but here it's very simple pseudocode given just to understand that the importance of your task pass function, which is used in the cooperative scheduling. So, system wait function, which allows your task to wait for an event. Okay, while your OS task pass switches to another ready task immediately. Okay, so this makes the, so if any ready task has a lower priority than the current running task, then the calling task, this pass, does not cause a task switch. So there's a reason anywhere we in cooperative scheduling we put all tasks with the same priority. In case if you give some for example different priorities are assigned to the various tasks. In such a case, if for example the task 1 is running and task 2 is having the lower priority than the task 1, then suppose then when you block it, it goes to the blocked, and maybe it will try to go to the task 2, but suppose this is given with the lower priority than the task 1, then again it comes back to the task 1 itself. Okay. So what I mean here is, if you assign different priorities to the task, then the task which is in the ready list having lower priority than the running, then definitely it won't get a chance for the execution. But in RTX, while writing the code, we assign the same priority to all the tasks in the application. So very simple. me go to is the code visible to you? Hello?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. It's very simple code which is given. Nothing much in this. Whatever the pseudocode I've given, meaning the just elaborated with the same. Anyway, these are the mandatory inclusions which we need to, and this is definition of your ID for the task. Since I have two tasks and we are using two counters, so unsigned variables, and we are putting some message here in our program. So I have given with the buffer the message, the size, and this is the for the character to display on the terminal, whatever the message. So these are the function prototypes for initialization on the two tasks, and we have the UART function. So this is the UART. Anyway, I have the initial standard function which we follow in all the program, and this is your initialization function. So as I start with the main, in the main, if you look at the main code, the int main, you are calling the UART function and the initialization with the highest priority. Okay. So since your program starts with the main and it goes to the initialization function, and in the initialization function, we are creating the two tasks with the same priority. We are creating the two tasks with the same priority. Once you do it, you delete it. Once you do it, you delete this initialization function. Then coming to task one, we have say as I have given the same priority. So task one, continuous loop, while one loop, which wherein I increment the counter. Then I just want to put the message that the printf task one counter, okay, whatever the counter value, suppose it starts with 0, 0, because this is for the task one, counter one, and the counter value will be displayed. So as per your buffer size, whatever I've given, I just want to put the message here. So we'll be using this LPC UART, check whether that the status register is set, okay, for the transmit data is sent. Once your transmit data through the buffer is sent, the particular bit in the status register will be set. So you just keep on till it is set. Okay, this is for the UART for sending the message. Then you make it 0, and here again this is for we have a task message and also the counter value which I am going to pass it on. Then this is very important. I have a OS underscore task pass function. Since it is a cooperative scheduling, we'll be using this. So whenever I use this function, it blocks the running task and it switches to the next task. So exactly the same copy I have here, whatever we have given in the task one, the same thing here, but only thing is you have task 2, counter 2 with the value which you give it, the incremented value for the counter. Okay, that decimal value will be printed. Rest everything is the same, and you have a task pass function so that it switches from task 1 to task 2. Okay. So we have not used any delay function here, nothing. So you just keep incrementing the counter and display the message task 1, task 2 and the corresponding counter value. That's it. So this is your initialization function I have explained many times. So you need to enable the peripheral control and enable the txt and rxd for the UART, then baud rate setting by enabling your DLAB, and once you do so, you disable the DLAB bit in the control register, okay, so that you latch the value. For 9600, we have used the specific value in the DLL and DLM, and you have this FIFO control register. You just make use of this, okay, and you enable the interrupt, that's transmit and receive interrupts. In FIFO control register, you need to enable the transmit buffer and whatever the receive buffer. Yeah, this is the cooperative scheduling. It's very simple code, just given. Any doubts? Hello?
No doubt.
Yeah. So now we'll just showing the. So anyway, I have not run all the codes, hardly 3-4. So this looks very fast. Can you see the display? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
So there is a task 1, task 2, the counter value, the switching between the task 1 and task 2. Okay. So the counter value and the, because it keep incrementing. So you can notice that there is a switching between the task 1 and the task 2. Okay. Okay. So in summary, so we have seen all the 3 scheduling. So RTX, that is it's an example of your real-time operating system. The advantages are the application is split into smaller tasks which can run concurrently, and there are many advantages. Okay, so in real world process may consist of several your concurrent activities. This can be represented in software by using your RTX kernel. Okay, and your different activities occur at different times. Please note. For example, at the moment when they are needed, it is possible because each activity is packed into a separate task. I mean, we can independently run in your practical applications. Another thing is tasks can be prioritized. You can assign the priority to the various tasks. And also it is easier to understand. I mean, if you write a big code, it is very difficult to, but since you have noticed the small examples which I have shown, when you have a small pieces of code, it is easy to understand. And your RTX kernel is also scalable. Additional tasks can be added easily at a later time, or it is okay. Also, the RTX kernel offers services needed in many real-time applications, like your interrupt handling, periodical activation of tasks, and also the, one second. And time limits on wait functions. So in summary, we have seen the different task creation and execution, how to create a task create, task delete functions, and your main function in which you have system initialization function, and you start the initialization task. So this simple functions which we have already seen, and in task states and management, we have a running and a ready. Okay, so the task which is currently running in the running state. Okay, so only one task at a time can be in this particular state. Okay, so ready we can have in a buffer, but only one task can get a chance for running by the process. Okay, so and one more thing is the OS task underscore self, which returns the task ID. If you want to get the ID of the running task, you can make use of this function to get the ID of the task which is running. And we have a wait delay function. Okay. So delay wait function, which is used to place the task in the wait delay state. You're making it to go to blocked. And we have seen the interval. You can assign certain interval of time and wait for the interval. Okay, so there is a wait ITV state whenever you use this function. And we have a wait or and wait and function when in the event functions. So you have a OS underscore event wait or event wait and. So there is an event register for each task. There are 16 event bits in the flag. So in the particular task can wait for an event provided it is set by another task. So you're waiting for some event. That way you can put your code. And we have this I'm here to discuss on semaphore. Your RTX configuration file, this is RTX underscore config.c file, which is in the particular folder, whenever you install the code, RTX config directory, which specify the number of concurrent running tasks, also the number of tasks with the user provided stack, and the size of each task. That is a stack size. What is the stack size allotted for each task? This enable or disable the stack checking running task in the, so that is you can enable or disable the running task in privileged mode. So this configuration file also specify the timer number used as a system tick timer. There are so many which I don't want to read. So these are the things which are defined. If you look at the configuration file, that .c file, you have listed with all these specifications, the queue size, the timers, okay, whether you enable the round robin, etc. Okay. Yeah, these are the functions which we have already seen. Maybe we are yet to discuss on, I think, initialization function, maybe priority, changing the priority we are yet to discuss. But other than that, I think I have used all these functions in the code which I have given. Okay. Almost, not all, but almost most of the codes and the functions are used in the program which I have discussed. Maybe we have not used the task get, task self, etc. Probably we can use that to get to know the the specific ID of the task which is running. Yeah. So you've done with the intertask communication in RTX, I mean the scheduling part. If you've got any doubts, you ask, otherwise I'll move on to the next topic. Any doubts?
I'm in cooperative scheduling.
Yeah.
Say we have more than 2 tasks, we have 3 tasks at the same priority. Okay. So in that situation, if I am running task 1 and I'm done whatever I wanted to do, but now I want to run task 3, is there a way to do that?
See, it will go in a sequence. See, let me go to the PPT once again. Once again. Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
I know, ma'am, by default it will go in a sequence that T1, T2, T3, and T4, but if we want to change the sequence during runtime, is there an option?
a runtime changing is option is there, provided you give different priorities. To give different priorities, right? Then you can. Then you don't call it as a cooperative scheduling.
Okay, ma'am. So in this cooperative thing, that is not allowed.
So you don't call it as a cooperative scheduling. That will then it will be as good as your preemptive scheduling, right? See, runtime, if you want to change based on the priority, putting some sort of interruptions, it will be preemptive scheduling.
So cooperative multitasking is only useful if you're running something in a ring, sort of.
Yeah, of course, because what is cooperative scheduling? Others need to be cooperative. That is why it is called as a cooperative scheduling. So the task which is running, if it is forced to go to blocked, then the other task which is in the ready list, as per the ready list only, it will take a chance for the execution.
Got it, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll move on to the uniprocessor scheduling. Uniprocessor scheduling. So far we were discussing the RTX. We'll have a break for some time with RTX and we shall see the theoretical aspects. So we'll try to understand the different types of scheduling which we have it in the uniprocessor system. So the main aim of your processor scheduling is to assign the different process to be executed by the processor. Means which process should get a chance for the execution. That is decided by the type of scheduling. Accordingly, your dispatcher will switch between the different process. So in the different scheduling, we call as long-term scheduling, medium-term, and the short-term, and IO, of course. So long-term scheduling is to mean the decision, that is to when to add the process for getting the chance for the execution. So as we have seen in your process state, I have a ready, running and blocked, right? So this is how, it's a simple state diagram we put it. And of course, we have already seen there is another state which is suspend state. So long-term scheduling means the process which is in the blocked state. Okay, when to allot the processor for getting the execution. So that becomes your long-term scheduling. So the medium-term scheduling, I mean, of course, it is the name difference would be, maybe we'll see later in the slides. So let me give in this particular. The name long, medium, and short is, short is immediately it is getting a chance. Medium is maybe with a little delay, or long maybe, yeah, long is with respect to the suspend state. Medium is the task which is in the block, and short term is the task which is in the ready. This way we can put it. So ready list, the process which is in the ready list, quickly it can get a chance for the execution. Medium term is the process in the blocked state, it's in the main memory itself. So now when does that process get a chance for the execution? That comes under your medium term. Long term means the process is in the suspend state, it is in the secondary memory. Maybe it will take a little long time for getting the chance for the execution. I hope you understood. So that is the decision to add the process to get a chance for the execution, the processor time. Okay, so that makes the difference between your long-term, medium-term, and the short-term schedule. Yeah, so this shows with the state transitions. Yeah, I think this clearly gives analysis. So when a process is created, call it as a new. Okay. From ready to running, it comes as a short-term schedule. It will immediately get a chance for the execution. And the from ready suspend, please remember I have given the different what do you call the states, maybe 6-state diagram, 5-state diagram, etc. Process state. We have something like a ready suspend. From here to getting to through ready, so it becomes a little delay, medium, and you can now the process which is just created, and it should either through the ready suspend or ready it is getting a chance for the running, then it becomes a long-term scheduling. Okay, so I hope and also from blocked suspend to blocked, this also medium-term scheduling. I mean the time shift putting back to your ready list. Okay, that is your long-term, medium-term, and the short-term scheduling. Different levels of scheduling. Maybe this is same as the one. So here we can see the different state diagram. You have a process which is running, it can exit, And I mean, from the ready list, it goes to the, from block through ready, gets running. From running, it can, I mean, this is a simple state diagram. Simple state diagram. So this we can put as your short term, because it is everything you have in the main memory itself. And the medium term, the different levels, you have it in the block suspend. The one which I have explained in the previous, I am just putting it as given with only 3 states. Only 3 states. Then how we can categorize as long term, short term, and the medium term. Suppose I have the different further categorize the states like your ready suspend, block suspend, etc. Then you can put your types of, I mean, the levels of scheduling in this way. Okay, this becomes your short-term scheduling, and here you have a block suspend and the ready suspend. Because from ready, it goes to the ready suspend, and then it gets a chance for the execution. Then it becomes a medium term, and maybe the process was just created, okay, because it is yet to get chance. So then you call it as a long. Okay. I hope you understood the different levels of scheduling. So this is just to show the queuing diagram for scheduling. Queuing diagram for scheduling. Here we can see that, yeah, the same thing whatever I have shown. You have a ready queue. So from the ready list, one by one, it gets a chance for the execution. Okay. Then it releases. So it becomes a short-term scheduling. So you have normally in your simple applications, you have a batch of jobs. So will be put in your queue. Okay. So like in interactive means maybe there are something like events. So the process which is waiting for an event. So there could be some interactive users to keep interacting. Okay. So then the particular process can get a chance for the execution. We'll put in the ready queue. Okay. So in that case, from the different process queue, it can go to the ready suspend queue. And supposing if there are something like a process which is, I mean, gets a blocking, suppose it's waiting for an event, waiting for an event. So you have a blocked queue. Okay, if event occurs, definitely it goes to the ready. I mean, through the event only it gets a chance for the execution. And there are something like from block, I can have a block suspend. From block suspend, maybe I go to the ready suspend, or okay, so you go to the ready suspend. From the ready suspend, you go to the ready queue. Okay, so this is just to show the queuing diagram in your data structure. So there are different data structures given to how the different processes are executed in a uniprocessor system. You have only single processor. Okay. All cannot be executed simultaneously. It is put in a buffer. There's a queue. So through the queue, it gets a chance for the execution. So you can notice there is a short-term scheduling. This becomes your medium term because you have a suspend queue through which you get a block. So the process which is in the main memory itself, but not in the ready list, may not get immediate chance for the execution. Okay. Any clarifications? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Hello?
Ma'am, like we have scheduling, different kinds of scheduling from ready state to processor, right? The preemptive scheduling, the cooperative multitasking, and non-robin. So do we have scheduling algorithms for this, the long-term scheduling and medium-term scheduling?
This is like in general, maybe or any type of a scheduling which we have discussed. So what we mean here is the timeline. It is just a timeline diagram, I can say. In a list of different process. So maybe I think you didn't get the one which I was. Yeah, that is the decision to add to the pool of process to be executed. That you categorize as a long term, medium term, or the short term. Consider any type of a scheduling in general. Are you getting it? You have a different process in the ready list, and due to some reasons, the process can go to the different the states like ready suspend or the blocked suspend. Please refer the book to understand what are those ready suspend, block suspend, etc. Then there will be a delay in getting that process. I mean, that is a decision, right? To put that process to get a chance for the execution. Then it becomes a short term. Short term in a sense, immediately it will get a chance. It is there in the ready list, in the maybe in the I'm sorry, okay, the process which is here. It will get a chance immediately. You get it? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
There is something like priority queuing. So here we are discussing on the different queuing on a single processor. So you have the different priorities given for the process. Okay. Suppose we have multiple ready queues. Okay. So queue ready queue 0, 1, 2, etc. Maybe I have a n number of set of processes which are put in the queues, and you have a block queue. So based on the priorities, the process get dispatched for the execution. So you have a list of priorities assigned, and maybe you try to make sure that there is a process which gets a chance for the execution. Suppose there is any preemption, then it will go back to the respective queues of your set of priorities, right? So preemption, and suppose if any, I mean, what I mean here is a process which is running, then in case there is a process higher than the process which is running enters into the queue, then definitely it is preempted and put back in the respective queues, and the highest priority process will get a chance for the execution. You have a different set of priority queues. That is based on the preemption. Or you have process which is running, waiting for an event, then it will go to the block queue, and whenever the event occurs, it will put back to the respective ready queue of the different priority. Here these are the priorities. Okay, you have a set of priorities. So it is putting to the respective ready queue so that whenever it chance comes, it executes. Okay. This is how the priority queuing takes place. Yeah, there are different scheduling criteria like user oriented and the performance related. Maybe I don't know, most of you have gone through these terms in the embedded system while discussing the scheduling, but let me refresh again. There is something like the various parameters which we use to measure the performance of the scheduling algorithm which we are using. So that is how efficiently the processor is utilized. That is processor utilization. We want to know the processor utilization, whether I am using the processor 100%. Okay. So which is best? So maybe you have gone through the first in, first out, first in, last out, and there are different types of scheduling. Okay. And maybe the shortest job first, the job which is having lesser time for the execution can get a chance first. Of course, there are different scheduling, and when you use any sort of a scheduling, we need to know the various parameters, something like a turnaround time. What is turnaround time, response time, etc. So the turnaround time is the interval of time between the submission of a process, when the process is submitted, and its completion. Okay. So in a timeline diagram, suppose this is a time at which the process is submitted, and this is a time by which you have finished. So this is completely, maybe in between I must have having the blocking time, etc. But the total time would be your turnaround time, the TAT. So your TAT includes actual execution time spent, waiting for the resources, including the processor. Okay. Then you have a response time. Response time. So in your, this turnaround time can be, it's a good measure in a batch job. Means I'm not bothered about any sort of an event. Means it's a straightforward method. It keeps on executing with a different task in a batch job. But in the interactive process means I'm waiting for some event. There will be some interruption. Okay, in such a case, so you need to know there is another parameter which is response time. So this response time is the time from the submission of a request, until the response begins to be received. Okay, so this is very important to understand. So often a process can begin producing some output to the user. Okay, it can produce some output to the user while continuing to process the request. Okay. So this is a better measure than your turnaround time from the programmer or the user point of view. Then we have deadlines. So this normally we use in your real-time scheduling. We want to know that, okay, whether it is able to complete within the deadline. So when a process completion deadlines which are specified, the scheduling discipline should, you subordinate the goals to that, maximize the percentage of the deadlines met. Anyway, so there are different types of scheduling. Maybe I don't know whether you've seen rate monotonic scheduling, earliest deadline first scheduling. Okay. So different types of scheduling means dynamic scheduling, static scheduling. in runtime, I want to know whether I'm able to complete the deadlines, which is efficient. Okay, so this is another parameter which we need to notice. Okay. Then predictability. So means deterministic. So the nature of your scheduling algorithm, whether I would be able to get my results, okay, on which I'm supposed to, okay, the predictions. So a given job should run in about the same amount of time, which is about to the same cost regardless of the load on the system. So if there is any variable load or whatever in the different situations, so I should be in a position to get the results. Okay, so that is the predictions. So there are wide variation in response time or turnaround time in distracting to the users. Okay. So this is another parameter which we will be looking at in discussing the scheduling criteria. Yeah, here the criteria we are discussing on the user-oriented, performance-related, just user-oriented. So in performance-related, we'll be using turnaround time, response time, and the deadlines, because whether I am able to. Just user-oriented, we would want to know the predictability of the algorithm, and system-oriented and performance-related, which comes through your throughput. So throughput. So the scheduling policy should attempt to maximize the number of processes completed per unit of time. That is your processor. I mean, it is system oriented. Okay, how many process it is able to complete in a unit time. So this is a measure of how much work is being performed by your processor. Okay. So this depends on your average length of the process, but also influenced by your scheduling policy. Then you have processor utilization. Processor utilization. So of course, this is say if I consider the percentage, that how much percentage of processor is utilized, means whether the processor was busy, maybe 80%, 85%. Maybe there is something, the time at which the processor is underutilized. So if my scheduling algorithm makes the processor 100% utilized, then means it's the best scheduling algorithm. So in a single user systems and in some other systems, this is less important. Okay. Then the last one, which is system oriented. System oriented, we have a fairness. That is the absence of guidance from the user or other system supplied guidance. Okay, so the system oriented, and maybe we normally we don't touch upon these things, the other, but the rest, all the parameters which I have discussed, maybe we will focus on those things while normally discuss any of the scheduling algorithm, that is enforcing the priorities. So when a process are assigned priorities, definitely the scheduling policy should favor the higher priority process. Right, of course, it has to be with the higher priority process. Then you need to balance the resources. That is the the scheduling policy, whichever the scheduling algorithm you choose, should keep the resources of the system busy. How you are managing the resources, that is also most important in your different scheduling algorithm you use. So the process which makes underutilized the stress resources should be favored. Okay. So this is how different scheduling criteria are chosen. Yeah, your scheduling criteria is interdependent, and it is impossible to optimize all the, whatever we have discussed, maybe which is impossible to satisfy all. So for providing good response time may require a scheduling algorithm that switches between the process frequently. Okay, between the process, so which increases the overhead of the system when I keep switching. So when I do so, definitely it reduces your throughput. There is a latency involved, the context switching, everything. So this will reduce your throughput. So thus, the design of a scheduling policy involves compromising among different competitive requirements, means based on your applications. So there is a relative weight given for the various requirements, and which depend on the nature and use of the system. Ultimately, it is based on the application, which application you. So whether in a particular application I want to have a better throughput, fine. If an application needs a good response, yeah, then which is better. So that way you can categorize the scheduling criteria. Yeah, so I hope you have seen first come first service and round robin scheduling. We will be discussing the shortest process next. Highest, yeah, these process, types of scheduling will be discussed. Anyway, we will have the comparative analysis of these type of scheduling as well. Any doubt so far?
No, ma'am.
1 second. We'll have a 5 minutes break. Hello?
Okay, ma'am. Got it.
ಇದು ಮೌಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Okay. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. Hello. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So let us see the characteristics of different scheduling policies. Maybe we will discuss that and in the next, but let us try to understand the features of the various algorithms. First come, first service. Okay, so we can see there is a FCFS. As we know that the process which is entered first will be, that is a priority here. Okay, so the process which is I mean the selection function is the process with the maximum waiting time, which was waiting for a long, means which is entered first. So which is should be scheduled. Then what is wrong? And in the round robin scheduling, you have a fixed time. That is selection function is, you have a fixed duration. That is a constant function. Then you have in the shortest process next. So the process which is having the minimum execution time, the minimum time. So that is the selection function. I mean the different selection functions. And the shortest remaining time, how much time is remaining for the execution. That will be the selection function. Anyway, we will discuss in detail. But today I just want to give you just the features of the various scheduling algorithm. And we have a HRRN type of scheduling where you have a waiting time plus your the response time and the response time, whatever. And you have a feedback. So maybe feedback we'll see later. And the decision mode. The decision mode is your FCFS is non-preemptive. It's a non-preemptive. Means of course the process having entered first will get a chance. And the round robin is preemptive because with the time quantum, whatever the amount of time is given, it will preempt with the timer tick. SPN is again non-preemptive, SRT is preemptive, HRRN is non-preemptive, feedback is preemptive. Maybe you'll not be able to understand the whole scheduling because now, I just want to give you the various the parameters which we have discussed. Throughput. For FCFS, throughput is not emphasized. And for round robin, maybe low. But if you look at SPN, SRT and HRRN, they are very high. Again, your feedback is not. The response time could be high, especially if there is a large variance in process execution times. Some condition. And in round robin, which provides good response time for short process. Note, suppose you give some longer duration of fixed time for a different process, then the response time could be of no use. Okay, so it provides a good response time for short process. Here again the same for the SPN. But SRT provides a good response time and HRRN. Then the overhead. Overhead is minimum here because I don't switch because it's a non-preemptive. There is less overhead. But round robin also it is less overhead. Okay, because with the timer tick, it switches from the one process to another process. But the next three could, next all, there's no high overhead because of your the type of scheduling. So effect on process, effect on the different process. Here, FCFS, so which can penalize the short process because suppose the process which is entered late must have given me the short duration of time, but since it is entered recently, even though it is a shortest process, it needs to wait for a longer time. Maybe also it can penalize your IO bind process. But in the round robin, there is a fair treatment. In SPN, there is a which penalizes the long process because the shortest process get a chance. So if a shorter process enters in the ready queue, keep entering, then the longer process may have to wait for a longer time. Here again, the SRT also it penalizes the long process. But HRRN gives a good balance in this respect. But this feedback may favor IO bound process. Then about the starvation. So what's the starvation? Because a process may not get a chance at all. So that may not have it in your FCS and around robin, but in SPN SRT there could be because a longer process may not get a chance at all. And HRRN it won't, but in feedback also there is. Okay. Yeah, so coming to the scheduling policies, maybe in the next class I'll straight away start with the specific scheduling algorithm, the different the scheduling policies. The selection function, so which determines which process. Okay, means The scheduling policy will decide which process should get a chance for the execution. Okay. So the function could be based on your priority or resource requirements or the execution characteristics of the process. So there are different characteristics, which is waiting time. That is amount of time you are waiting for executing. And E is time spent in your execution. Maybe we will follow this notations. So S is the total service time required by the process, which includes something like your turnaround time, including the execution time. So this must be estimated or supplied by the user. Okay. So W is the waiting time, E is the execution time, S is the total service time. So the decision mode of your scheduling algorithm, which specifies the instant in time at which the selection function is executed. There are two types. It could be non-preemptive or preemptive. I hope you know the difference. Preemptive is it interrupts the process which is running, but non-preemptive it cannot. In FCFS, it is non-preemptive. So process which is entered first, it will execute. Then the next which is entered will be given with the next highest priority. So that gets a chance of the execution. Okay. Yeah. So there's an example given. Maybe I will discuss this because this is quite simple. With the rest, we can have a discussion in the next. Maybe possible. I may not be able to complete because within 5-10 minutes it is not possible to give the detailed discussion. Anyways, so here is an example given. We have 4 processes W, X, Y, Z. 4 processes. And given with the arrival time 0, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Okay. And there is a service time. This is 1. Start time 0. Finish time 1. Turnaround time 1. And this is TR by TS. That is turnaround time by service time. Means when it is going to get a time for the service after waiting. Okay. So similarly for X, so we have given a set of parameters. Okay. Now we have an expression. The turnaround time. Please try to understand the expression. Maybe in different books, they will give different notations. People get confused. You have the specific notation given here. The turnaround time is given as start time minus arrival time plus the service time. So let us follow the standard expression. Okay, so this standard expression. So turnaround time is, it is the residence time or the total time that particular process spends in the system, which is your waiting time plus the service time. So this is your waiting time. So when it was arrived and when it got a chance for the execution, that's the start time, right? Which is your waiting time. So I can put it as your waiting time is start time minus arrival time. Okay. Then plus the service time, means how much time it is getting for the execution. So this is your what do you call normalized turnaround time. This is the normalized turnaround time. Okay. I have scheduled one quiz now, so we'll have a break now. Maybe I'll discuss the comparison and the execution in the next class. Maybe I'll repeat the FCFs again. Do you have got any doubts on the various parameters? Anyway, I'll discuss again on FCFs when I... Anything to be told from your end? Hello?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So there's a quiz now.